Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Wrestling with Tragedy. We are here once again. Once again, the Kingpin is muted. And
Somebody
Kingpin,
muted me.
you got to unmute that bitch,
I
bro.
didn't even hit it. I didn't even touch it.
Take it
Anyway,
away.
It completely
welcome.
kicked me out.
Oh, shit.
Welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Tragedy with your host, the Kingpin, Pierce Austin, and Kevin Rodriguez. Today, we are on the Vince Russo Network, which we will always be. But right now, this week, we're going to be talking about the Kurt Angle, Karen Angle, and Jeff Jarrett conspiracy or tragedy or romance or trifecta. But before we go any further, I want to get Kevin the floor so we could give our sponsors a shout out, A-Rock Design. Go ahead, Kevin.
Guys, if you check out A-Rock Designs on Facebook, it is my wife's custom business where she makes all those cool wrestling cups, shirts, hoodies, keychains, literally anything you want she can make, guys. So make sure you hit up A-Rock Designs on Facebook, message Ashley Rodriguez, and tell her Wrestling with Tragedy sent you. It's not going to do anything for you, not going to do anything for us, but we damn sure love it when people say our name.
And get a Wrestling with Tragedy cup because they're fucking beautiful. They will be when they're released.
Also, guys, Myon Belts on Facebook. Make sure you get in contact with Eddie and Ira Williams. They are the American representative for this amazing belt company. Payment plan as low as $20 a week, guys, or $20 a paycheck. If you're looking to add to your belt collection or even start a belt collection, any belt you can possibly think of. I've seen classics, I've seen moderns, I've seen customs. Anything you want, Eddie is the guy to go to for any of your belt needs. And also, guys, like I've said last week, we are working on getting our Pro Wrestling Tee store for Wrestling with Tragedy. But in the meantime, while you wait, if you find yourself needing that awesome merchandise, if you find yourself needing to support the show and support Piers and myself and Angel and really help us get the ball rolling, make sure you go to prowrestlingtees.com/Wrestling Review Society or prowrestlingtees.com/MWA World. You will find the Shooting the Shit Uncensored shirt. That is Piers' show where he interviews amazing people like Vince Russo, like Zicky Dice, like TJ Perkins, just to name a few. You can also find their 2020 wrestling shirt. It is their weekly trivia game. And if you want to be a guest and test your trivia knowledge, all you have to do is message Piers Austin and say, how do I get on 2020? That's how we get on, and that's how you're going to get on. So make sure you hit him up for that. And while you're at it, like I said, prowrestlingtees.com/Wrestling Review Society. That's where you can get yourself the War Room shirt. That is my interview show where I've interviewed guys like the current reigning NWA champion, Nick Aldis, the WCW legend, Vampiro, and Garrett and Eric Bischoff, just to name a few, guys. Amazing shirts, amazing sales, amazing shows. And by showing your support, you help us make this show even better. So thank you for that. And once again, a huge, huge thank you to Vince Russo for allowing us to use his platform to bring our show to a much bigger audience. So thank you, Vince, for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. Hey, that's weird. This is the first time we ever had technical difficulty. I was muted. You was kicked off. Fans, we are so sorry. It never happened before, so it kind of caught us off guard.
It's going on the Wrestling with Tragedy 2020 blooper reel.
There you go. Little blooper
Angel,
reel.
Angel just going. That's the most smartest thing I ever heard Angel say.
Go fuck yourself. You know,
it's all love, bro.
But it is what it is. I mean, it happens. But hey, today, I mean, we're rolling off of like another one of like. First, we did the Lita, Matt, and Edge story. Now we're going into the Karen Angle, Kurt Angle, and Jeff Jarrett. I mean, this is just rolling like a set of dominoes.
What I think it is, Angel, when you break it down. I mean, raise your hand if you've never been cheated on. Exactly my point. These particular stories are so relatable. They're so personal, and everybody has a time in their life where they can go back and look at things like this. And not everybody has done drugs in their life. Not everybody has experienced major loss in their life, whether it be a close friend or family member. But every single person can relate to heartbreak and being cheated on and, being with that person that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with just to find out not the case. So I think these are really cool topics for us to cover, and it really gives a lot of our viewers a chance to really invest in these shows.
Kev, would you say that everyone's gone through hard times?
Well, I can tell you two people who definitely went through hard times, and that's Karen Jarrett and Amy Dumas, as we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And again, just from the previous shows that we talked about, that's why you do not shit where you eat. You don't build a relationship with any of the talent because it's going to backfire and bite you in the ass. I'm not saying all of them will happen, but it does happen.
And it goes to show no matter who you are. Like, I understand last week we covered Matt Hardy. Now, I'm just going to say something that's just a fact. As far as WWE goes, I'm taking out TNA, I'm taking out Ring of Honor, I'm taking out all that stuff. As far as WWE goes, Matt Hardy has been a mid-carder at best. He's never really stepped into that main event role. He's never carried the WWE Championship or the WWE Heavyweight Championship, now the Universal Championship. He was world champion in TNA. He was the ECW champion, but he never really stepped into that main role for WWE. You take the person we're talking about now, in Kurt Angle, a man who lived in the main event, a man who's held every title you can possibly think of, who held the X Division Championship, the TNA World Championship, and the IWGP Championship at the same time. One of the only men to hold the IWGP, the WCW, and even the WWE Championship. This man is, he is exactly what he is. He's a Hall of Famer. He's in 3 different Hall of Fames, and this still happened to him. So if it can happen to him, it can literally happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And Kurt Angle is probably one guy who is. Could you put him up there in the same conversation as one of the greatest professional wrestlers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I will say he is the best technical wrestler WWE has ever had.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But he's also a guy that comes from a legit background in amateur wrestling. But he's also a guy that was able to come in and not just be this serious, I'm an amateur wrestler. And, if you've been around amateur wrestlers, they're very straight-laced kind of people. They're very committed to what they're doing. But he was able to come in and build a character. He was able to come in and be a persona, kind of like Matt Riddle. He was able to come in from a UFC background, but not come in as your typical I'm a badass MMA fighter, come in with a character. And that's what Angle did.
He is a sexy Kurt, and he makes your ankle hurt because
he's just a sexy Kurt.
Stop it. Stop it now.
That was my favorite angle he did.
Mr. Russo, I apologize for this nonsense. I will do my best to keep these degenerates on track. But, one of my favorite stories about Kurt Angle, and it doesn't even have a world title revolved around it or anything like that. One of my favorite stories about him is when he first started out, he was told to go out and get booed. And he was able to do that. And he found himself going out in Pittsburgh. And he was telling the backstage people, he's like, dude, they're going to love me here. This is my hometown. I won a gold medal. They're going to love me. There's no way.
Broken fucking neck.
There's no way I'm getting booed here. And I believe it was Michael Hayes that was telling him. I think it was. I could be wrong.
I think it was Vince.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Vince.
Okay, so they were telling him to go out and get booed. And he was like, I'm from Pittsburgh. Everybody loves me here. There's no way I'm getting booed. So he walks through that curtain with a head full of steam, and just immediately the "you suck" chants, "we hate you" chants, the boos, and he just walks out and he goes, well, if Pittsburgh's going to hate me, I'm going to make everybody hate me. And it was in that moment where he really embraced the heel, because he still had hopes of, being a face and stuff like that. But he said when he got booed in Pittsburgh, in his hometown, where he took a gold medal back to Pittsburgh
with a broken neck.
He said, "Screw it, I'm just going to get booed everywhere." I love that story.
You know what? I really love Kurt Angle as a character, as a wrestler. Like, to me, he was always someone, when I first saw him come out, he legitimately made me fucking hate him. Like, I saw this guy, I was like, oh, I just want to see this guy get beat so bad. And that's the thing, for a guy that got into wrestling and was basically put into the main roster, to be able to pick those things up so quickly. And it's like, it's one thing to get the in-ring stuff down. And you, Angel, I'm sure you've seen a lot of guys who are great in ring, but when it got time to put a stick in front of them and for them to speak, they shit the bed.
Brock Lesnar.
I've never seen Kurt stand there and shit the bed on a mic. You know, like, he was always able to deliver. He picked up those nuances, those different aspects of professional wrestling, of the promo, the heat, the comeback, you know what I mean? Like, the cowardly heel, you know what I mean? Like an American hero, a gold medal winner, to then embrace being a coward and being that cowardly heel. To me, I was like, fuck this guy. But it speaks wonders for the performer that he is, and the performer that he was, coming straight in there.
And, you know, Piers, I'll go a step further. One of my favorite Kurt Angle matches of all time. Now, this may be an unpopular opinion to some, but these are just my personal opinions. The guy I'm talking about, I don't consider him a professional wrestler. I don't consider him as somebody who can go out there and carry a match. He needs to, I believe he can have a good match if he's with the right opponent. He got stuck with not stuck with Kurt Angle, but he got booked with Kurt Angle, and it led to probably his best match I have ever seen, where he took somebody who wasn't known for being a pro wrestler and put on a match that made every one of us believe he could have been a pro wrestler. And I'm talking about Shane McMahon.
Dude,
I wanted to hold that in suspense to get you guys to really understand Shane, yes, he's had training. Yes, he does take it seriously. But when you think of a pro wrestler, somebody who devotes their life to wrestling, somebody who eats, breathes, and sleeps, not the business side, but the in-ring side, you don't think of Shane McMahon. But he took Shane McMahon in that match and made it so emotional and so real that by the end of it, Vince was ready to fire Kurt.
He was ready to fire. He was pissed at both of them. I mean, I know the match that you're talking about, and
but when you take the chairman and the leader of the company who says go out there and inspire emotion, when you inspire so much emotion in him, he is pit. When you can get that emotion out of Vince McMahon, you know you got that emotion out of everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree that, that was an awesome match. My favorite match of all times was Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle, because they had the wrestling, chain wrestling in the beginning, especially with the moonsault at the end, where Brock Lesnar, which I still don't understand how he did not break his neck, but did catch a concussion. But it was a phenomenal match. I mean, Kurt Angle could get in the ring with mostly anybody, even Pierce, and make him look like a world caliber champion.
Well, you know what? I've only seen probably one bad Kurt Angle match, and that was in TNA when he wrestled Wes Briscoe. So Wes Briscoe, second generation wrestler, you'd think this guy has been brought up around a wrestling ring, was pretty much raised in a wrestling ring, and that match was the fucking drizzling shits.
Jeez, tell us how you really feel.
It was. Come on, man, go watch the match and you tell me that.
I gotta look it up.
I'm actually going to see. I'm actually going down to Florida to watch a Wes Briscoe match. I'll be down there with Garrett Bischoff while he's a special guest refereeing the match between Shannon Moore and Wes Briscoe for the heavyweight championship of Atomic Wrestling. So shout out to Garrett. Thanks for being so awesome, man. Thanks for being a great friend, and I'll see you soon, man.
I wonder if that's good. And they're still going to have those shows due to the COVID situation? I mean,
as of right now, it's still on.
That's cool. That's cool.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to get off topic and talk about someone else, but to me, that was the only bad match.
Yeah, because we never got off topic on this show.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, if you can't have a good match with Kurt Angle,
dude, his matches, and I understand what Angel's saying, and I cannot agree more. When you look at Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania, just staring at that paper with that match on it, you'll get the goosebumps from it. You'll get chills from it, and you just know on this day and time you're going to witness greatness. But let's not forget about the work he did with guys like AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe. Like, the man, like you said, Piers, could wrestle a broomstick and get the broomstick over. The man is he when you think of the list of greatest pro wrestlers of all time, I understand that's such a loaded question and it changes every single day, but you're not going to make it far down that list without mentioning the name Kurt Angle.
And Curry, man.
But you know what, as well, you look at like Kurt Angle, he's a guy that can fit in anywhere on the roster. He can be your heel. He can be your top heel. He can be your top babyface. He can be your mid-card heel. He can be your mid-card babyface. He's a guy who is so adaptable and so talented. As I said, to me, honestly, I think Kurt Angle is, you know, when we're talking about, you know, greatest of all time, you got guys like Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Kurt Angle definitely has to be in that conversation, in my opinion.
And Kurt Angle's been the best in more than one era. Like, he has been at the top of his game in at least 3 different eras of wrestling. The man's amazing, but I want to get away from, I mean, we could sit here and we could talk about Kurt Angle highlight reel until the cows come home, and we're not even going to scratch the surface. So let's get into why we're actually here today. We're here to talk about, and we saw this last week with Matt, Edge, and Lita, and there's so many stories that we can cover. This just happens to be the one next on the list. So we have this story revolving around Kurt Angle, Karen Angle at the time, now Karen Jarrett, and Jeff Jarrett. So Kurt Angle starts out in WWE, or doesn't start out in WWE, but we're going to start in WWE. He's doing everything right. He's taking the world by storm. He's one of the top guys in the company, one of the top heels, wrestling guys like John Cena in a "You Can't See Me" match where Kurt is blindfolded. Or not Kurt, but John Cena's blindfolded, and he's able to take such a stupid gimmick and get it over. I mean, anything that man touched, even taking a man like Daivari, having him as a manager and getting the crowd behind that, really shows who he is. But you know, you fast forward to WWE reviving ECW. Now, we're very fortunate to have one of the ECW originals here with us, being the Kingpin, the king of the streets, Angel Medina. He loves it when I say that shit. But anyway,
he's like a little pig. You just got to tickle his belly sometimes, you know.
Before we get into Kurt Angle's role in the newly revived ECW, Angel, you as an ECW original, being there at the start of it, being there at the forefront of it, really being in the trenches, fighting for ECW. How did you feel when you found out WWE was reviving the ECW brand?
Well, I mean, supposedly, I mean, I was excited because at the time, the story is that when when Shane took over the WCW role as the owner of WCW, that we were going to do an invasion angle taking over WCW, and that ECW was going to take over WCW and become the new ECW. So when I heard that rumor, I was very excited, but unfortunately that did not pan out. So then when I was talking to DeVito about, you know, if we were going to get called, Tommy told us that we were on the list of people that they were considering to come to ECW, but unfortunately the financial aspect of that was not what we expected. If I recall, it was $750 to wrestle
Per show?
Per match, yeah. And it was like, and then they wanted you to be suited and booted because at the time they were doing the, you know, NWA, the NBA was like,
they wanted you to look professional.
Yeah. So then Vince wanted everybody to wear suits, and I'm like, God damn, for $750, I gotta buy, you know, all this new gear. I won't have any money to come home. Even though they never called me, I was already on the fence, like, I ain't gonna do it. And DeVito was like, I can't afford it. So
were you happy or satisfied with the way ECW was portrayed when it came back as it was when it was a lot. And we're not getting into an ECW style interview, but this story with Kurt does go into ECW. So while we're on the topic, just having you here, I think it'd be stupid not to address some of these things. Were you happy with the way they portrayed ECW when they revived it?
Nah, I wasn't happy because what they were doing was trying to kill off ECW, and they were trying to get all the ECW guys to put over their talent. You know, I mean, that was the story. Like all the guys that they were putting in there, like the CM Punks and the I forgot the other guys' names, but they wanted ECW guys to put them over.
You
and
had guys like CM Punk, Kevin Thorne, Monty Brown.
Yeah,
Kofi.
You had Kofi.
Sheamus.
Sheamus, Benoit was there for a short time.
The vampire dude.
Big Show.
That was Kevin Thorne, the vampire guy.
Oh, okay.
You had
Big Show was there.
Kurt Angle. I mean, you had a list of who's who of people. One thing I did really like about it, and for better or worse, I know this is a very split topic. We're in a lot of belt pages, belt collecting pages, and wrestling memorabilia pages. I thought, now I always loved the original ECW title. I love the gringiness of it, the hardcore aspect, the barbed wire, the kendo sticks, all that was great. But I was a huge fan of that new ECW title, the Phoenix belt. I was a fan of it. I liked it.
It was pretty much exactly the same belt, but a little bit tweaked. You know, like there was a few tweaks to it. But Kurt Angle
Wait, are we talking about the same belt?
Are we talking about the red logo ECW belt?
No,
we're talking about the black one.
I'm talking about the silver and black one that Matt Hardy and Mark Henry held.
Yeah, that was kind of like the sort of knife in the back of ECW, I think. Like that
it was the last real thing that had any resemblance of the original ECW.
Yeah,
I did like the belt. I didn't like what it stood for, but I did like the design of it. But we're not here to talk about belts. We're not here to talk about it. We're here to talk about Kurt Angle. So Kurt Angle gets the news. He's approached by Vince, and he goes, "Look, man, I want you to lead the charge. I want you to be one of the locker room leaders. I want you to be one of the main guys of this ECW revive. I want. There's very few people that can go and get this over. And I think you're one of those guys. I want you to be one of the main staples of making this thing a success." We see how that turned out.
I thought Kurt in that new ECW, like this is obviously the after the 2006 invasion or prior, just building that. I thought it was a great fit. Him coming out being like the wrestling machine, like just the intensity that they sort of put into him to really build him up.
So basically, the Taz.
Yeah, putting him in that Taz type of thing, but it wasn't a complete Taz ripoff. It was more elevating, Kurt as a performer and adding extra layers to that to him as a character.
But it was
like a parfait.
It was like in the original ECW, you had Taz, you had the submission machine, and Taz was a very good wrestler. He was a very good submission artist. When you think of that, Kurt Angle really was the perfect person to fill that void. Not so much trying to be the next Taz, but being able to present a similar character that Taz did in the same way, but at the same time making it his own. And like Angel just said, being the ring general.
And being a legit badass.
That role. Absolutely. He was the perfect person to put into that role. It just didn't work.
I think it worked for a period of time, but I just don't think it was ever going to be long-term sustainable.
I don't think it was Kurt Angle that didn't work. I think it was when everybody saw ECW was coming back, the fans immediately thought one thing. The ballroom, the smoky atmosphere, the grunginess, the profanity. Not this PG era bullshit that we find ourselves in, and that's not what they got. So when they saw the product that they were hoping to get versus the product they actually got, they just rejected it. You could have put any wrestler, any big name, anybody in there, and even Hulk Hogan in his heyday would have had a hard time getting that over.
Yeah, but if
Kurt
Hulk Hogan
Angle-
turned up to the ECW arena, I think he would have been welcome there,
You
bro.
get what I'm
No,
saying.
no,
Yeah,
I
but-
get what you're saying. I get
But
what you're
it
saying.
was ECW was set to fail from the beginning. Regardless if he put Kurt Angle as the ring general, if he would have got it over, he would have got it over. But due to the fact that he had so much to go against the grain with, that's the problem. I mean, Kurt Angle was awesome, but the thing is that if you look at the ECW from beginning to end, it was doomed from the beginning.
But also, Kurt at the time, Kurt came into pro wrestling after he sustained a broken neck. He broke his neck again. You know what I mean? Like his body was so beat up at that
He was
stage.
also having his own addiction struggle. He was
Yeah,
battling his addiction.
He was struggling on many different levels, and he went to Vince and said, "Hey, I need some time off. I need to go. I need to go away for a little bit."
Pierce, just before you say that, and I have something that's going to segue into that, and then feel free to run with it. But
Sorry.
No, you're good. The reason we brought up the rise and fall of the ECW, of the revived ECW brand, is because it was that whole situation that Kurt Angle was put in. Maybe it wasn't the only factor, but it was definitely a big factor where Kurt Angle, somebody who was one of the company's top stars, requests his release. Now, Piers, you were about to go into that story, so please continue. But that's why we wanted to cover the fall of ECW, because it ultimately led to his release, which put him in a different area, which is where we're really going to be able to dive into this whole debacle and this whole scandal. So Piers, please continue.
Yeah, no problem. So he went, and the story said, "Hey Vince, I'm hurt, I'm beat up. I need surgeries, I need time off, I need to heal. Please release me." So Vince goes, grudgingly, "Okay, you're released." A little while later, TNA then recruit Kurt Angle.
He finds that lighter workload.
But the thing is as well, you can imagine how Vince is feeling. He's like, you know what? This motherfucker comes to me, says to me, "I'm hurt. I need time off. I please, Vince. I'm going to come back to WWE." And then he just basically goes and hops into bed with another fucking company. Like,
well, I mean,
straight
it would be the same thing on a much smaller scale, because none of us are millionaires. But it'd be the same as if I came to you and said, Piers, Angel, I love wrestling with tragedy. I really enjoy doing it. I don't want to do anything else, but waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to record 3 to 4 hours of episodes, I got to take a step back. I got to get my mind right, and then I can come back better, because I'm not doing you guys any good here. And then you guys show me the support that you always have. Kevin, we get it. Take your time, get yourself right, come back, and we'll really start driving this thing home. And then the next day, you see me on someone else's podcast.
Well,
you'd be pissed. You'd be fucking legitimately pissed.
Yeah, but you got to. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say that even before that, before Kurt went to TNA, they had a meeting where they said, and I believe it was Dixie Carter was in charge, and she said to Jeff Jarrett, "Who is the one name that you would want to bring into TNA?" And that one name, he said, without skipping a beat, Kurt Angle. Pat Patterson.
but you're right. But the thing is that I can understand what Kurt Angle wanted to do. He wanted a lighter workload. He wanted his body to heal. But of course, when he went to TNA, he got a better deal and more time home.
So
but also he didn't need to fuck WWE in the process. I mean, like, if I was Vince, I'd be like sitting there going, "Man, I just got fucked without being kissed."
But hold on. You were taken off of, I mean, this is before NXT happened, but still, you're taken off the main roster to put on to a sinking ship. Vince pitches it to you like he's giving you the keys to the mothership, when really he stuck you on the Titanic, crashed your career, crashed your push, crashed any momentum you had. Is it not fair to say that Kurt Angle may have been a little jaded?
I don't think jaded's the right word to put it. I mean, like, he was put in there, and how long was he even in ECW for? Like, I know he was
A
there.
cup of coffee.
Yeah, it was not that long.
Exactly. He was there for a cup of coffee, and at the end of the day, at that stage, he had fucking done everything in WWE. He had been the Intercontinental Champ, the European Champ, the Hardcore Champ, the WWF Champ, the WCW Champ, the United States. He'd done it all, and at that stage of his career, absolutely going there and being that wrestling machine, it was to revitalize him as a performer. And I that's the way I looked at it when I saw him being part of ECW and when he was on the One Night Stand 2006. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. It's fucking, it added so much more to his character. And let's face it, if you're Kurt Angle, you're still getting paid the same amount of money. So if you're getting paid millions of dollars a year, Kevin, and someone goes, hey man, instead of you wrestling on a Monday night, I'm going to get you to wrestle on a Wednesday night. Are you going to fucking go, no, motherfucker, I got plans on Wednesday, bitch?
Yeah, but the thing about WWE is they'll run you to the ground until the wheels fall off, and that's the thing. He needed some time off. He needed to regenerate all those injuries, and they just could continue to keep pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, and he was at his wit ends, you know.
So let's look at TNA. Let's look at where TNA is right now. TNA is doing something that is very revolutionary, doing something that is so different. And it's a small well, not really a small detail, but it's something that's unique to them. They have the 6-sided ring. They're doing matches that like Ultimate X, like matches that we're used to seeing, but they put their spin on it. They're being original. At one point, TNA was a very prime company to give WWE a run for their money in ratings in a ratings war, but they failed to hit the mark several different times. But at this time, they were white hot. They had Frankie Kazarian, Jay Lethal, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, the Motor City Machine Guns, Beer Money, Petey Williams, Eric Young, Samoa Joe. And I come to Samoa Joe because, well, Piers, you have something you want to say, and then I'm going to dive back into TNA.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to ask, was TNA ever on the same level as WWE though? I mean, like, look, as far as product goes, yeah, like TNA had some great moments, but TNA as a company, they were always like, they had a great roster, and they've had great rosters over the years, but then they fucking shit the bed.
I agree.
WWE.
I agree with you. Go ahead, Angel.
No, I was just going to say, and the reason, I mean, especially with the 6-sided ring, in which they got from Mexico, because that's where they got the idea, you know, they wanted something different. They wanted the 6-sided ring. They gave it a different look, a different feel, and that's why they were being popular, because of their unique view on their product.
So to go back to Piers's question, you know, I don't think they were ever on the same level as WWE, but they damn sure had the tools to be. Like,
I agree.
They were on the racetrack with the keys to a Lamborghini, but they drove it like it was a Honda Civic. Like, they never really put the pedal to the floor, much like we're seeing with an AEW style product right now. Don't get me wrong, a lot of AEW's ideas are hit and miss, but they're trying. They are putting the pedal to the floor. They are throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and they're really taking a gamble. Something that I feel TNA failed to do was really take that gamble. They had the tools to succeed. Like I said, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, Beer Money, Motor City Machine Guns, and the list goes on and on. But where I really want to focus this story at is they had this wrestling expert, this submission machine, this badass, take no prisoner, staple of the company. When you think of TNA highlights, you have to think about the triple threat matches between Styles, Daniels, and Joe. So they had Joe, this amazing wrestler, this amazing submission guy, and now in comes Kurt Angle, this amazing wrestler, this amazing submission guy. And at the time, Samoa Joe is undefeated. Now he comes in and immediately is in this storyline with Kurt Angle. So Kurt Angle looks at it and he goes, there's something here. There's this amazing opportunity to take this company to the next level. They're just missing that one factor. And Kurt Angle very well could have been that factor. So they put them in this storyline, and they work it so well. They work it so organically. We never saw any physicality between the two until the match. We saw vignettes of them training. We saw shoot promos. We saw the emotion and the feeling, but you never seen them touch until the pay-per-view, which was I thought was absolutely amazing. It really took it to that MMA style of fighting.
Smart booking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Angel, would you agree that that was smart booking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's smart booking?
You agree with Dutch Mantel. Anyway.
Fuck you.
I saw what you did there, Kevin. That was good.
So anyway,
hate you.
Angle gets thrown into some amazing storylines. He does some great work. And then after through a series of working with Joe, working with Styles, and all this other stuff, he finds himself working with Jeff Jarrett.
But before that, his Karen Angle starts to become an on-screen personality.
Now, before you get to that point, how did she? I mean, I know that's his wife, but how was she considered to be a talent? Well, how did she get her foot in the door? What made Kurt do that?
Well, so it all started when Angel Medina agreed with Dutch Mantel. Go ahead, Beard.
So she was brought in to be in his corner, and very similar the way that it was started to be booked. It was like, and how Kurt, and we're going to get in.
Can I say one thing really quick?
Sure.
If you guys are wondering what this inside joke is with Angel and Dutch Mantel, feel free to look up MWA World on YouTube. Check out the interview with Piers and Angel Medina to really get the backstory on the Dutch Mantel story. It's freaking amazing.
Thank you for the plug there, my brother. But he brought his missus into an Angle, and one thing, no pun intended, but and as you said, Angel, before, you don't bring your wife around the boys. You don't bring your wife into the locker room. You don't bring your woman in that situation. He then started to bring her in. Him and Joe had the blow-off match where all the titles are on the line for TNA, and they even had a part where she was like almost having, you thought she was having an affair. She sat ringside holding this guy's hand. Then it ended up being a big fucking, obviously it was a whole work the whole time, but then it was like, no, the guy was in on this whole thing, cost Joe the match, etc. Kurt walks away with all the belts. She's more on screen, and she's becoming more and more involved. In the meantime, their relationship is starting to unravel. And prior to that, Jeff Jarrett and his wife, or his family, went through a massive loss.
Yes.
Where Jill Jarrett passed away due to cancer. And we're not going to make any sort of inappropriate comments around that, because
the only thing I'm going to say to kind of put things in a timeline, and like Pierce said, we're not going to make jokes about this. Cancer, breast cancer, any type of illness is nothing to joke about. So we're going to give that all the respect it's due. But Karen Angle and Kurt Angle were married in 1998. They divorced in 2008. Jarrett's wife passed away in 2007, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 2007.
2007. Yeah. And then him and Karen were married in 2010. And I'm not insinuating anything here. I'm just putting into a timeline. So Angle and Karen divorced in 2008. Her and Jarrett were married in 2010. 2 years, I mean, maybe even a little less, depending on when they started dating. They were together less than 2 years. So who knows when this relationship actually started?
Yeah. And also, who knows if Kurt and Karen were separated for years prior. They could have been separated by 2007.
When we look at the story we just covered with Lita and Matt, a story that we all knew right off the bat with how personal it was, we all instantly thought to ourselves, this is not a work. This is legit, real life shit. But then you look at the Karen and Kurt Angle side, and this one almost felt like a work from the beginning.
Yeah. But the thing is that I mean, it's just funny how I mean, it's not funny, but it's sad that his wife passed away from cancer. But I bet you, I mean, it's just like I bet you he was talking to her, he was getting, she was consoling him. He was going through a hard time, and that's what happens when emotions get involved. You start getting, feelings for other people. And again, I don't know. I'm just looking at it like she's there in the locker room, he's suffering. She probably was there as a friend at first, and then it just built from there.
And she was most likely suffering as well. Like people don't just separate and get divorced if they're in a happy relationship. Let's be honest.
Would you agree with what I had recently or what I previously said? The story we just covered with Matt and Lita. This was an angle that we thought from the beginning. We were like, okay, this is real life shit happening in front of our eyes. But with the Karen and Kurt and Jarrett, it almost felt like a work from the beginning. I didn't believe it for a while. I thought for sure it was a work.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely did. And, when it started to come to light, Jarrett was suspended from TNA, and he was an executive of the company as well as an on-screen performer. And they even turned around because Kurt at the time was like, he did an interview and he said, no, I'd be open to going back to WWE. WWE's my family. And then on TNA, on a paper, not a pay-per-view, but on a weekly television, he goes, hold on a second. And then he plays an interview where Kurt's going, fuck Vince McMahon. He can fucking suck my dick. And then he's like, well, hold on a second. Now you're sucking up to Vince because like I've taken you. You know what I mean? Like it was like, there was a very fine line between shoot and work with that.
There were shots being taken.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that's the only thing I didn't like about wrestling that's weird, especially if you have your wife or your girlfriend in the business and they say, hey, we got this idea. We're going to have Kevin, she's going to turn on you and she's going to be Kevin's manager and you're going to travel with Kevin. You're going to, go everywhere with Kevin. We're going to book your flights with Kevin. I mean, the same thing with Woman and Benoit, the same thing with...
I was just going to say Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah. Those type of
book
things.
Yourself into a divorce.
Yeah, you book yourself into a divorce because now you're spending time with the other person, and and she's telling you or he's telling you his problems. Oh, I'm so sorry, and all this stuff. And then that's when the emotions get involved. You're spending less time with your girlfriend and wife, and the guy who's working the angle with is spending more time with your girlfriend and wife. And then that's how it transitions. That's where the angle, no pun intended, goes.
But you look at Stephanie and Triple H. It was just.
We know you better than that. Everything is pun intended with you.
Exactly. Yeah. But you look at Triple H, the Triple H and Stephanie thing, not to get off topic.
Same thing.
They were booked in an angle, no pun intended. They were booked in a storyline, and that eventuated into something more.
Correct.
But the thing is,
you look down the history books, and this repeats itself time and time and time. You got Kevin Sullivan, Benoit, and Woman. You've got Chyna, Stephanie, and Triple H. You've got Matt Hardy, Lita, and Edge. Now we're talking Jarrett's and Angles. I mean, it literally happens every single day. Angel, you can speak to this more than any of us. How many relationships have you seen end due to on-road travel and storylines being booked the way they are?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's always, it just falls to the wayside. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's why you don't put your woman in the business, I mean, and if you do hook up with somebody, you just take it for what it is, just a fling. You don't make a relationship out of it.
But Jeff Jarrett and Karen, they weren't really booked together before this whole thing happened. It just sort of happened. Then obviously in storyline, they became involved on camera.
And that leads me to believe that I think that's why it looked like so much of a work. Like I said, I know we keep going back to last week, but you look at Lita and Matt Hardy, something that was very real. I believe, and I don't know this to be fact. I don't live in the Karen, or I don't live in the Angle household or the Jarrett household or anything like that. So I don't have any inside information, but just where it felt for me as a fan, I felt like all parties involved were involved in this storyline. All parties involved were in agreement. The separation between Kurt and Karen was a mutual separation. They weren't happy. They backed away. She was friends with Jarrett. Jarrett's wife just passed away. She was that shoulder to cry on, and Mother Nature took over from there. And I believe there was always a mutual respect between Jarrett and Kurt and even Karen, because we did see the involvement. We did see the running through the crowd and Kurt attacking Jarrett. But like I said, from the beginning, this always felt like a work. It was a while before I even realized that Karen, as a matter of fact, it's when I met Jeff Jarrett in person and Karen was there. I was like, oh shit, that really happened. Because during this time, one more thing.
Sorry.
During this time, TNA did a wedding angle where Kurt and Karen were getting back together, getting married, all this other stuff, and they involved AJ Styles.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing is, I found uncomfortable about the whole situation is when they involved Kurt and Karen's kids.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like Jeff's like having him call him dad. And look, I get it. He was a heel and he was trying to get heat. And pro wrestling is one of the pro wrestling is one of those weird and wonderful worlds where a lot of times nothing is taboo. To me, involving kids in it, I don't know. I found it to be a little bit lowbrow.
I think you have to go by the age of the children and the level of maturity. If they're able to understand, hey, we're playing a game, this isn't real, but we're going to act like it is. I think if the children are okay with it and they understand it, which, let's be honest, if you grow up in the Angle or Jarrett household, you probably understand storylines before you can walk.
But
So
it's funny. It's funny.
Definitely, I think it was not as bad, but I definitely get what you're saying. And I believe his children were fairly young at the time. Yeah. So I think if you're involving teenage children or adolescent youth who understand, I think that's okay. But if the children don't understand what's going on, I think you really could do some psychological damage to the children by involving them in a storyline.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I always tell Pierce, so you guys, everything's an angle. Everything it's just always a high spot. And you know what? I won't be surprised, if Jarrett had his thoughts like, you know what, maybe I can make some moves on her if we do an angle and see if I can go as far as I can with her to see what happens. And then they do an angle and he's just working the mojo, and then eventually she falls hook, line, and sinker for his suaveness or whatever, and then she hooks up with him. Again, like I said, there's always angles and everything, and when I look at things like that, I'm like, I wonder if he was, because all it takes is what Johnny Rogers always says, just takes a pencil and an eraser to make things happen, and if you just make an angle where he's with Karen, then the rest is history,
Look, man, the whole situation kind of like when I was watching it unfold on TV, I found it a little bit uncomfortable at times, and I felt like, absolutely, it's all about a heel needs to get heat by any means necessary. And we've seen that, but there's boundaries. And as a parent, that's where I kind of see, well, it's like there's got to be certain boundaries. And, I thought that when Jeff was doing the Double J MMA challenge thing, I thought that was fucking awesome. I thought it was incredible. It's taking shots at Kurt because Kurt was, almost going to be considered going into the UFC, who I believe it was going to be Tough 10. That they said that Dana White said, hey, man, you want to be in the UFC, you got to go through Tough. He was like, fuck that.
Yeah, but just always remember there's heat and there's cheap heat.
Yeah, true. And that's the thing. That's where, like, I think that the Double J MMA challenge, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was really well done. But when they started going more and more personal and you saw some of those promos, it was really evident that a lot of the stuff that was being said was really sort of going towards the shoot style than as a work style.
Yeah.
But anyway, so going with this situation, so with the MMA situation and when did it finally come to fruition where Karen was, with Jeff Jarrett? Like, when did it just?
I think
they started actually booking the storyline in late 2008, early 2009. So right around the time that Kurt and Karen finalized their divorce, and they were actually divorced. Maybe even just a little bit before that. But I definitely, like I said earlier, I definitely feel like everybody was involved. This was a group decision. This was an idea that was presented to everybody. It may have been met with a little reluctance, but everybody kind of, and honest, we were just talking about, Lita paving the way for women to do many different things. I think this was them trying to recapture the Lita, Edge, and Matt thing. And because the Lita, Edge, and Matt was so organic and actually happened, that's what made it hit everybody right at the heartstrings. So when they tried to recreate that and when they tried to book it, they watered it down. They oversaturated it, and it just didn't hit the same way. But I honestly believe, and I don't know this to be fact, I'm not one of the greatest bookers of all time, Dutch Mantell, but
Dutch Mantell's got to be the greatest mind in pro wrestling, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, Angel's already agreed to that.
Yeah, I mean, we the people believe that Dutch is brilliant.
But when they tried to recapture,
I'm not putting that over, motherfuckers.
When they tried to recapture reality with a story, it just didn't hit the same, and we saw that 100% with these two storylines going back to back, and that's one of the main reasons we wanted to do these two stories in repeating weeks, is to really break down how one really got over, and the people involved, their careers were never the same for the better. And these ones, yes, Kurt Angle did hold TNA titles and the IWGP titles at the same time during this whole thing, whatever, but it didn't really elevate them. It kept them right where they were.
I mean, I think it was I think it was a decent enough storyline to sort of put out there. And you know what? It did elevate one person, which was Karen Jarrett / Angle. She was the one that elevated it greatly. She became an on-screen authority figure for TNA, and she really became a good heel. Like she went from being one of the guys' wives,
head of the women's division or something like that.
She went from being one of the guys' wives to being a heel. Like I would probably put Karen Jarrett in the same cup of coffee in a discussion with Vicky Guerrero. Vicky Guerrero.
Stop it.
Oh no, that's a different thing.
I wouldn't say at that level, but she, you know what I mean? Like she did have some pretty good fucking work there when she was there, man. Like you can't say she didn't. She did have some good heat. Vicky was another level, but you can put her in a similar conversation there.
Well, do you think due to Kurt Angle's injuries, his substance abuse, all the pills that he was taking during the time, do you think that was part of his demise of his marriage, even though Jeff Jarrett got him involved?
I think now Kurt Angle's been very open about while he was in the Olympic Games, he did take steroid injections to help his neck and stuff like that, but he was very against any other kind of drugs. So I have no reason to believe he didn't live a clean lifestyle going into this. But whenever you go into a marriage on one premise and then you start introducing the drugs and the alcohol and all this other stuff that wasn't a thing when you got married, now you're bringing in a whole different dynamic into the marriage that was not there when the marriage took place, when the dating happened, when you initially fell in love with this person. So I feel like when you add something into that, like drugs and alcohol abuse, you really start to put stress on the marriage. And I think it did play in a factor because Kurt Angle had 3 DUIs in a year.
And it also changes the personality as well. Once you start abusing drugs and you start abusing alcohol, you have your come downs, you have your moments when, you know what I mean? And that will wear the person's partner down over a period of time. And how long did she try and stick in there to stand with him?
That's a good thing. So you think with Jeff Jarrett's situation, with his wife passing with the cancer, and due to the fact of a hard relationship with Kurt Angle with his substance abuse and stuff like that, they had something to talk about, and then they had that connection.
I mean, if you're happily married, you're not going to go and venture out elsewhere.
No,
you know what I mean? And I think over time, she was beaten down, not physically, but emotionally, going through that, seeing that, and Kurt going, fuck it, I don't need help. And remember, around the same time, you know, fans were saying, we believe Kurt's going to be the next one to go.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
Kevin, you were gonna say?
Sorry, Kevin.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, you talk about how drugs and alcohol can really put a strain on a marriage, and Piers, even though the idea being as asinine as it was, you brought up Vicky Guerrero. Well, let's talk about that for a second. Vicky Guerrero, her love for Eddie was everywhere. It was very plain to see. She loved that man. She worshiped the ground he walked on and would have done anything for that man.
Yeah.
But she said in her recent episode of Dark Side of the Ring, it was actually Chris Benoit's episode that featured a lot of Eddie Guerrero. She openly said, you know, she loved this man. She had children with him, built a family with him, but she was so tired of seeing what he was doing to him, to his body with the drugs and the alcohol, that she would always call the ambulance. She would always put him in the safe position, roll him on his side so he didn't choke on his own puke. But there was one incident where he had taken some pills, washed him down with some alcohol. He had passed out in his chair, and Vicky was going to the grocery store. She grabbed the kids, got in the car, and just said, God, if you're going to take him, do it now.
Yeah, but wasn't
rough.
he not?
That
But
really
he wasn't
showed
responsive.
No.
He wasn't responsive.
What I'm saying is for you to worship the ground someone walks on, for you to love somebody that much, and you're okay with walking out the door, not knowing if you're going to come home to that person being alive or not, that really shows you the strain and the stress and the exhaustion that introducing drugs and alcohol addiction into a marriage where it didn't previously exist can really strain a marriage.
And the mental anguish as well. Like I said, it's you know, when you see someone who is abusing drugs and abusing alcohol, you see that persona change. You see a person that you love becoming something that you don't even know, and you're essentially living in a house with a stranger. You know, what I mean, same face but different, not the same. And
absolutely.
And I apologize for cutting you off earlier, Kevin, about that. I just
you're
really
fine.
want to get that
But
point out.
One thing I do want to stress, that we can sit here and we can talk about his drug addiction and his alcoholism, his DUIs and all this other stuff, but Kurt Angle is, in every facet of the imagination, a success story. He had all this money, this fame, this fortune, and the income to support this habit and go crazy with it. But he realized he was making a mistake. He realized he wanted to live long enough to see his children graduate college, to walk his daughter down the aisle, to be there for these key moments. And he took himself and he got himself right, and he got off all the drugs, all the steroids, got the surgeries he needed, got his body right. So for him to recognize that and be strong enough to break that habit, as much as we're talking about his addictions and stuff, Kurt Angle and even Jeff Hardy, somebody who is clean and sober now, is nothing more than a success story.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? We talk about Kurt in TNA. Like, you look at some of the stuff, like when he was in the Main Event Mafia, his whole body changed. Like like you could tell he wasn't on the gear then. You know what I mean? Like of the juice. Like he became like half the size of what he was.
Yeah, because he had the injury, he had elbow injuries.
Every bit of power that he ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he just looked like just a scrawny dude in that.
Yeah, because he had apathy in his arms, you know, due to the neck injury, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a lot of injuries. I mean, you can only go so much, you know, 100%. But again, he slimmed down, and it was because of his injuries, man. He couldn't be on the gas and lift the way he left before.
No, not at all. And I agree totally with you.
That was hot.
But it's just like I said, just, you know, booking the angle the way that they did. I think the only person that really won out of that and really got any establishment out of that was Karen. And I stand by that opinion.
No, and you would have to, because going into this, Jeff Jarrett is a former WCW champion. He's a former WWE Intercontinental champion. He's a former NWA champion. He's a former TNA champion. I don't think he was X Division champion. No. But King of the Mountain. All these accolades. Kurt Angle, I mean, he had just as much, and more accolades than Jarrett did. The only person who wasn't really established on TV or in pro wrestling, aside from being somebody's old lady, was Karen. And
Yeah.
this put her on screen, on TV, put her in storylines, put her as the head of the women's division. So yeah, for you to say that she didn't benefit from this, you'd be absolutely ignorant to say that.
Yeah.
Do you think like when he finally got with Karen, he kind of put up the ladder and just climbed up to the top and did the King of the Mountain pose and said, I finally like, I got it, holding the panties up in the air.
Oh,
yeah. And do you reckon Karen was the only decent angle Jeff Jarrett was ever in?
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we have just hit the 1 hour mark. We could talk about this all day. There's no way we can cover all of Kurt Angle's achievements in 1 hour.
But we could do Karen's every angle.
Jesus Christ. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this episode of Wrestling with Tragedy. A huge, huge, huge shout out and thank you to Vince Russo for putting Wrestling with Tragedy on the Vince Russo Network, where you can check it out every single Monday. Also, don't be a stranger. Go ahead and subscribe to Wrestling with Tragedy on YouTube for some really cool exclusive footage that you're not going to catch anywhere else. Make sure you subscribe to us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you get your social media fix. You can find us at Wrestling with Tragedy. Also, once again, a huge thank you to our supporters, our sponsors, the people who make this show happen each and every week. A-Rock Designs for all the custom merchandise they make, like Piers Austin's CM Punk tumbler. I don't know why a grown man likes glitter, but that's another conversation for another day. Thank you to Myon Belts for being an amazing supporter of the show. If you're looking to start your belt collection or add to your belt collection, make sure you go to Myon Belts on Facebook. Myon Belts, not Myon Championship Belts, just Myon Belts. Exactly how it is spelled at the bottom of that screen. That's who you want to go to. And Eddie will take care of you with the best payment plan you'll ever see for any championship belts. And once again, guys, if you feel that itch to get your hands on some amazing merchandise, if you want to help support this show until we get our Wrestling with Tragedy Pro Wrestling Tee store up and running, feel free to go to prowrestlingtees.com/Wrestling Review Society and or MWA World on prowrestlingtees.com and score some amazing merch like the War Room shirt, the Shooting the Shit shirt, the 2020 shirt, or even our Wrestle Hub shirt, which seems to be a really big hit for some reason. I don't know why, guys, but for some reason, everybody loves this shirt. I don't know why.
It looks better when you cover Pierce.
Oh, yeah, it looks amazing when you cover Piers.
You mean this shirt? You mean this shirt, Kev?
Yeah, I wonder where they saw that logo before.
You know what? I don't know, but I got to go, guys. So I'm gonna go catch you later.
Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Piers, Angel, if you guys have anything you want to end the day on, feel free to, and then I'll wrap us up.
Oh, like I said, I mean, I really appreciate the fans and thank you for supporting us. Again, this is a venture that we're just taking it to the full tilt, and you know, just get on for the ride, man. It's just going to be a hell of a season of Wrestling with Tragedy. But again, and if it wasn't for these two guys, you know, this would have not happened. So again, thank you guys, and we're going to take it to the infinity and beyond with.
Jesus.
Go ahead, Pierce.
That's his name. Guys, thank you so much. This show has been blowing up. We've been getting a lot of messages, a lot of support. You guys are just blowing up like wildfire. Make sure you follow us at Wrestle Tragedy on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. As Kevin said, wherever you get your social media. And guys, thank you so much for allowing us to come into your homes and talk about some wrestling tragedies and scandals. And thank you to my two co-hosts as well. It's always a pleasure to sit down and talk wrestling with you guys.
And you've got, spoiler alert, guys, you're not going to want to miss it. Next week's episode is going to be our biggest episode yet. We are breaking down a topic that nobody has touched, that everybody seems to be a little afraid to go after. But here at Wrestling with Tragedy, we fear no topic, we fear no man, we fear no program. We we'll be covering the absolute amazing story of none other than